Hello, David. Welcome to CSA Conversations today.
Hi, Gamze. Thank you for having me here. I'm so excited to get to talk to you today.
Me too. Me too. How is Canada? How is life over there? Snowy?
Oh, Canada.
Cold today?
Well, I live on the west coast of Canada in Vancouver. So we're sort of the warmest place in the country. Everybody wants to come and live here because it's not as much snow. So we have, instead of snow, which everybody thinks of when they think of Canada, we have rain. Rain. So it's another rainy day in Vancouver, but I'm just glad it's not a snowy day here in Vancouver. That makes me happy.
All right. Very good. Very nice. We are together today with David Allison from Canada, Vancouver. Let me introduce you a bit to give some information to our audience. You are like a behavioral science pioneer, as they say, in your field. You were in marketing and advertising for so many years. And you did a very exciting research about the concept called Valuegraphics. Actually, you created the concept itself. Your book, I love the title of the book, by the way. We are all in the same age now. Just became a bestseller within 24 hours of release. And it's one of the best leadership books, 10 leadership books, according to a magazine. They mentioned the name. So I'm really excited to talk about the concept Valuegraphics today. I will also learn a lot, probably, from the concept. I want to start my first question with, what is Valuegraphics and what is the difference between Valuegraphics, demographics, and psychographics?
That's a very good question. And because I do a lot of public speaking, of course, I can't possibly answer a question without some slides. So I prepared some slides for us to look at today. So let me just take you back and talk about things from a very grand historical perspective to begin with. The light blue line you see going up there, that's the rate of change of humans, what we care about, what human beings care about over the last 100 to 50 years has gone through the roof. We've become something entirely different than what we ever were before. And that other line, that's the stuff that we made for ourselves. Democracy, religion, all the other systems and ideas that run our world. And those things have not changed. Those things are changing at a very slow pace. So humans have zipped off and become something entirely new. We're all focused and thinking about something different. And yet these institutions that we've created to rule our world, think about democracy and capitalism and religion, all of these big ideas, they aren't changing fast enough. And that's why I think we have so much stress and anxiety and division in our lives. Now, if we could figure out a way to get those creations of ours and any new ones that we make in the meantime to catch up to where we are as humans and what we really care about, the world would be a happier, better, more aligned place. So the first question is, who are we now? What have we become? How do we define this thing that we've moved on off that graph and become instead? And more importantly, what do we care about so that as we bring these institutions and things towards us, we're narrowing that gap. We need to tell them how to get there. First thing we have to do is tell them who we are so they know where they're headed. So that's a big challenge, because the moment right now, we have tools to help us understand who we are that aren't going to help us very much. Tools like demographics and psychographics. Demographics were a great way of us understanding each other back in the old days, because men had to behave a certain way. Women had to behave a certain way. Young people had to behave a certain way. Old people, rich people, people with an education, people who had 2 kids. Demographics were your destiny. Well, today that's not true. Today, you can largely live however you like because of the flattening forces of technology. And psychographics, another tool we sometimes use. Psychographics are just a record of how you've behaved so far. So it's really great to know that a group of people you're trying to engage and influence, that they may be very focused on, let's talk about, you and I were talking about Diet Coke and Diet Pepsi this morning. So about people who buy Diet Coke, how many Diet Cokes do you drink every day? That's a psychographic fact, but not a fact that's going to help us describe who we've become and how we can become something better. It's also not a fact that describes anything. Demographics aren't going to help us understand anything other than our outward characteristics, because men don't have to behave a certain way, women don't have to behave a certain way. So the tools we have right now to help us understand who we've become are outdated tools from way back in the old days, just like some of the institutions that we created way back in the old days. And we have to do this, not just for our jobs, but for our planet. We have to align our world, the things we've created, with our values. Because if we don't, that gap continues to spread, and we continue to have more and more divisiveness and disagreement and all kinds of terrible things that are happening around the world. So that's the context for Valuegraphics. Here's a little bit about how it works. Every organization on Earth, we're all trying to do the same thing. We're all trying to just get a group of people and convince them to do something. So it begs the question, how do people decide to do something? So if you look at all the fields of human behavior science, sociology, neuroscience, psychology, they all agree that our values are the most important determinant for every feeling, every emotion. Everything that we do is driven by what we care about, which makes sense when you think about it. If I care about my family more than anything else on earth, and something comes into my field of vision that says this could be really good for your family, and that's the thing I care about more than anything, I'm going to go like a magnet to that thing. But if something comes along that might harm my family, or might even be just maybe harmful for my family, I'm going to run away and do everything I can to avoid that thing, because family is the most important thing in my life. So it's all about our values. Now, it turns out there's only 56 values. There's only 56 things people are running towards or running away from. So now we got some math here. Now we can start to apply algorithmic techniques. We can start to apply data and research to figure out which ones are the ones that are going to help you when you're trying to get a group of people to do something, which is what we're all here to try and do. So Valuegraphics adds a layer of understanding to audiences. We know what their demographics are. Still kind of useful to know if we're talking to men or women or rich or poor or whatever. Psychographics, how many Diet Pepsis have they drank in the last month? That's still interesting to know. But now we also know what they care about. And if you talk to people about what they care about, what their Valuegraphics are, now you can get them to engage with you and do something different than they've done before. Maybe when we profile an audience, or when I'm speaking to a group of people, every time I come and do a speech, or every time I work with a client, I pull custom data out of my database of 500,000 surveys from around the world. And we come to that audience and say, listen, you people are trying to engage and influence this group of people here. Here's what they care about. So when you leave this room today, or leave this digital meeting that we're having, I'm going to be able to show you exactly what you need to say and do to get your target audience super excited and magnetically attracted to whatever it is you'd like them to do. So this was a group we pulled for the United Nations. They asked us to help them understand a specific group of global medical professionals for some humanitarian work they're doing. And we were able to point out to them that these people have an off the charts importance they place on community, compassion, and service to others. These three things stand out compared to the general population. So craft messages and programs and services that will help these people go, wow, this is the stuff I live for, and these guys are giving it to me. Of course, I'm going to go and listen to what they have to say, engage with them, and do what they'd like, what they want me to do. I'll show you one other, just because it's my favorite. There's a very, very expensive designer men's fashion brand out there called Brunello Cucinelli. And Mr. Cucinelli doesn't know that I've done this yet, but I've gone and found the profile for his customers. And so these are the things that make Cucinelli customers excited about buying his clothes. They have a streak of health and well-being that's far higher up the list than it is for anyone else in the population. He needs to be focusing on how his clothes are going to make you healthier and more well, or how they're making the planet healthier and more well. They also really love possessions. They love their stuff. So remember to focus on how this isn't just a sweater. This is a sweater that you're going to be able to pass down on generation to generation because of how well made and how beautiful it is. And they have a strong streak of tradition. So the fact that these sweaters are made on 100-year-old looms by grannies in this small village in northern Italy who have been taught to use these old tools in these what were abandoned warehouses, and he's come along and fixed them and made them useful again. All of these stories are going to be incredibly powerful as a magnet to attract the people who want to buy his clothes. So here's my big story. Here's how it wraps up. If we're going to change the world, which is direly in need of a lot of change right now, the very first thing we have to do is to stop using ideas like demographics and psychographics to understand the world around us, and instead think about the world around us based on what people care about and what their values are, because it's far more powerful, and it's the way we need to move forward, not just in our companies, but for everything we do on planet Earth.
I totally agree. And then it brings us back to the concept of data, which will be very crucial in the future as well. They say the data is the new oil nowadays. Not sure if you agree with that.
I do.
It's a complicated term. It's a complicated sentence. But I wonder how organizations can utilize data as their strategic asset to benefit from it and to just build a new economy in their environment.
I have a bit of a controversial perspective on data. I think for the last 10 years, someone sent a memo to everybody in every company everywhere in the world and said, collect as much data as you can. And so we invented new ways to get all kinds of new data. So we have data about every time when someone comes on your website, first they go here, then they go here, then they click this button, they stay there for 2.3 seconds, and then they move over here. We know when people walk past our store because we can have their GPS on our phone. We know when this happened. We know so much stuff about our customers. We know every time they have a nap almost, we know what our customers are doing, and we have the data around this. But I think in the last year or two, we've all sort of stood back and gone, what are we supposed to do with all this data? This is so much data. We've been gorging on it. It's like this tidal wave, this tsunami of data that we're swimming in, trying to find that one thing that makes sense, that we can actually do something with, and not just collect data for the sake of having more data than the next guy. The right data is the answer to this question. So I think we're just starting to get there. I think we're just starting to understand that data is useful if we know that it has a purpose afterwards. So the data we've collected had this very much in mind when we built our database. We wanted to only collect data that would help organizations understand how to move the needle and how to get their customers to do what they want them to do. It doesn't have any information in there about whether or not their customer came to the website last week or not. But when you sit back and think about it, who cares if the customer came to the website last week or 3 times last week or 4 times yesterday? All that tells you is what they've done so far. It doesn't tell you how to get them to do something different tomorrow. Maybe you want them to stop coming to the website and start coming to the store. Like, how are you going to do that? You don't know that based on what they've done so far. You know what? When I'm speaking, when I'm on a stage, the way I'll tell this story is I'll look at someone in the front row and then I'll say, this lady here, she's wearing a red coat. And I'm going to look at her and say to myself, gosh, well, I know she's female. I guess you're about 18 years old. That always gets everybody to laugh because she's not 18 years old. And I can tell you like the color red. And I'm going to guess that psychographically, you drink at least 1 cup of coffee a day. And she always goes, yes, yes. Oh, haha, you're picking on me. You see, so we have a lot of fun. There's a lot of laughs. I say, okay, but none of that tells me how I can get you to drink 10 cups of coffee a day, switch to tea, maybe think about Red Bull, or get off caffeine altogether and onto these supplements that are going to be better for energy for the course of the day. I don't know any of that stuff based on the demographics and psychographics that I would know about you if you were just a traditional target audience. So all that data you can collect, what color red, how much coffee is she, how much sugar does she put in her coffee? Does she drink all of that stuff about our current behavior and who we are from a demographic perspective, it's nice to know, but it's not the data you need in order to get you to the next step, to get you to a place where you can say, aha, for my target audience, I need to talk to them about this and this and this, because that's what they care about more than anything in the world. So how can I design my product? How can I change my human resources strategies here inside the company to attract better people and keep the great ones we want to keep? How can I use this for research and development, for marketing, for messaging? Anytime you need to understand an audience, what's crucial from a data perspective is what do they care about? Now, there's all kinds of ways to figure that out. You don't have to hire me, although that's the best way because we have the only database. But just even start asking them, saying, what do you guys care about? Because, you know, we go and do surveys and we say, what's your name? How old are you? How many kids do you have? What's your job? What's your income? What do you like about my product? How many of my products do? So we want to know all this stuff about them and about us as a company. But what we never ask them about is themselves. What do you guys care about? So if we just start doing that and noticing patterns and finding out that our customers are very concerned with the environment, very concerned with personal growth and being a better version of themselves, very concerned with how other people see them and their social state. Who knows what you'll find? But those are the pieces of data that you can actually do something with. Those are the ones to be hunting for.
It reminded me the concept of consultative sales. You know, you consult the customer. You don't really only ask questions to be able to sell something, but you get the insights from them to be able to serve them in a better way. So the right data might be this a bit, right? Because you just get to know about what they care more so that you can really offer them the products or services they really need more. It's interesting because now there's no generation differences as well, right? There's no generation X, Y, millennial, or Generation Z. You're talking about shared human values, which will matter.
And they go
more.
across. They go all the way across, right? So you mentioned my book. It's called We Are All the Same Age Now, and it's available on Amazon. It was written when I only had the data for Canada and the United States. But the ideas behind the book are still valid all over the world. And I'm in the middle of writing the new one that will share what we know about all the countries in the world, all 180 countries where we're valid, where our data is valid. But I guess the key takeaway is that because of the way we've constructed this data set, it's referred to as a random stratified statistically representative sample of the population, which is great to say at a party if you're trying to impress your friends, as long as you've only had one drink and not two. And really what it means is it's so accurate that we can take slices out of there and go, what are these people all about? What are these people all about? And so we've done this with demographics, with age, for example. So let's talk about millennials, because for the last 20 years, we've all been running around going, what do millennials want? They're strange. They're different. We've never seen anything like millennials before. They're some kind of unicorn in the enchanted forest. And we need new products and services and marketing and companies and brands, and everything has to be different for the millennials. Trillions of dollars we've spent to try and change the world for millennials. Well, here's the thing. 500,000 surveys we've done around the world now, and we have the same number of millennials in our data set that the real world has. So an exact proportionate representation. Millennials on all 436 different things we've measured, what they value, what they want, what they need, and what they expect from their lives. 436 things. Millennials only agree with each other 15% of the time. So if you're going to try and do something for millennials, the best you can hope for is that 15% of them are going to agree with you. Now, that means 85% of them are going to disagree with you. These aren't very good numbers. If you're going to try and spend a bunch of money to get millennials to do something and you only have a chance of getting 15% of them, that's not a very good ROI. Now, here's some other interesting stuff. If we just look at everybody on the planet and say, how often do we all agree with each other just because we're human and breathing and walking on the earth in the year 2021, humans agree with each other about 8% of the time. So when you're targeting those millennials, 8% agreement of that 15, you get that for free. That's just because they're all breathing and human. That's the table stakes in the poker game. So it means millennials agree 7% more. So now it's even worse when you think about targeting millennials. You only have 7% better chance of getting them to do anything than if you just didn't target anybody and said anything to anyone, anywhere in the world. So here's the thing that's the inverse of that. If we look at groups of people and instead of defining them by age, like we just did with millennials, we define them by values. They agree with each other inside that group, that definition, that defined group, as much as 90% of the time. So if you're going to spend $1 targeting millennials, the best you can hope for is a 15% ROI. If you spend $1 targeting a Valuegraphics cluster, the one I'm quoting is actually called the Adventurers. If you instead just ignore age and focus on people who live for adventure and all the things we know about them, they agree with each other 90% of the time. That's a 90-cent dollar instead of a 15-cent dollar. Which one do you want to spend? Is my money? I want to spend the 90-cent dollar.
Yeah.
So that's
really interesting. It's
really a huge difference.
I think that's quite eye-opening for everybody to just hear that.
Well, and then I'll just wrap that up very quickly. It's not just millennials, and it's not just age. It's income, gender, marital status, number of kids, education, white collar, blue collar, divorced, married. There isn't a single demographic category where the numbers are any better. So if you describe your target audience as 18 to 24-year-old men who have $50,000 a year as an income and have an education, you've just taken a bunch of groups who don't agree on anything, piled them on top of each other to make a bigger group of people who don't agree on anything, and then you go and spend $1 million trying to get them to do something. It's kind of ridiculous when you think about it.
Yeah. As I said, it's really eye-opening and it's insightful. Anyway, thank you so much, David, today for your time. It was a great conversation and hope to meet you someday, somewhere in the world. Not on Zoom only, but face-to-face, hopefully.
Well, I'll warn you, when all this is over and we're allowed to do meetings in person again, I'll warn you right now, I'm a hugger. So just expect it's coming. We're going to have a big hug.
All right. Thank you. Thanks so much. Have a nice, have a nice year, actually.
Yes, you too.